Have you ever wondered what it takes to scale a social enterprise from a simple idea into a thriving community, and what it really takes to raise sponsorship money for a purpose-driven organization? We'll be exploring these questions and many more with our guest today, Ashleigh Ainsley, the co-founder of Colorintech. Founded in 2016, this non-profit is at the forefront of diversifying the tech space. With a bold vision to make Europe the most inclusive tech hub in the entire world, they've raised a substantial amount of grant funding, including a $250,000 grant from Google, which was the largest they had given at the time. They've also managed to build a community of over 30,000 members. Under Ashleigh's guidance, Colorintech has scaled to the stage where they are now, where they're turning over millions. Ashleigh's journey is a masterclass in scaling a purpose-driven organization, securing corporate sponsorship, and leading a team with vision and impact. This interview provides a blueprint for anyone looking to navigate the complexities of corporate sponsorship, on scaling a purpose-driven organization, and on leading a team. If you're ready to uncover the secrets that Ashleigh used to transform his vision into impactful action, stay tuned. And if it's your first time here, welcome. This is 1000 Voices, your go-to resource if you're a Black Briton looking to drive change but you're stuck at the how. In this podcast, we unpack the journeys of Black British changemakers. We unpack the tools that they use, we explore the barriers that they've shattered, and the ways in which you can do it too. I'm your host, Tevin Kitto, and without further ado, this is 1000 Voices, and here we have Ashleigh Ainsley. So for yourself, most people are going to know you for your work with Colorintech. Maybe the Black Tech Fest as well, knows all in one, but the Black Tech Fest, when I was looking into it, it hasn't even been around for that long, but it's a big thing.
Yeah, we say it's Europe's largest event for Black technologists, and it is. There literally isn't anything as big as what we do for the community that we do it for. So that's been a journey of that was our 4th edition in 2023. We're going year 5, and we're going bigger and better. I can't wait to share some of our plans. But yeah, it's been a growth journey over that kind of period of time. Obviously, a lot of people think we started it as a response to like George Floyd or the pandemic, etc., etc. The idea actually happened from before then. We were working on it, and then all of that stuff happened. And a little bit of background. I know you didn't ask this, but I'll go into it. A little bit of the background for it was, I call it corporate gaslighting. I mean, we were getting gaslit as a community. People saying there aren't Black people in leadership because we didn't exist, or we weren't applying, or we didn't get in the opportunities. Almost questioning like, did we exist, or were we good enough to be there in the first place? And there's such a lack of data in terms of the proportion of Black people in tech, the proportion of people in the workplace, that it was really hard to have a counter argument to that. Not because it wasn't correct, but just because hit me with some data. All I can see is that the people aren't at the top, and all these companies were effectively saying that they're fine. That wasn't a problem. Effectively, that society, people weren't really talking openly around race or anything, and that was the narrative. And we were like, well, we kind of know that's incorrect, but how on earth do we do it? So in a way, we came up with the concept of Black Tech Fest to shortcut that. It's like, gosh, we don't have the data. How about we just bring as many people in one place and show them that we actually exist? Highlight the great work that people are doing in the space where people don't have those reflections or those stories, or they don't know that this person's the CEO of that, or that person's the managing director of that. And let's give that opportunity, whether you're an intern all the way up to a CEO, to talk, but not talk about being Black. At Black Tech Fest, we have very few sessions around anything like that. It's more about how people have either excelled in their careers or what's actually going on in their actual day jobs. Let's talk about the tech, and that's great. And that can be social media, that can be music and AI, that can be data, it can be whatever it is, but let's actually talk about what people get paid to do. I don't want to be on a stage talk about the fact that I'm Black. Let me talk about my business. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. So let's normalize that. Let's normalize that in the community. Let's normalize the fact, I see lots of events and conferences, and it's like, back in the day, it's still really bad, but you'd never see any Black leaders on the panels, or they'd always say, we're struggling to find women. So like 60% of our audience is women, 70% of our speakers are women. I never had that problem, so I don't accept it as an excuse. It's possible if you work on it, you put intention into it. So yeah, it kind of came as a response to that in terms of some of the work. And then yeah, first 2 years, obviously with pandemic hit, we couldn't come together in person, but we did great things virtually. That gave us a good footing, great brand, and a good opportunity then to get people excited about our first edition in person, which we did back last year in 2022. And this year we had 5,000 people through the door, another 12,000 people online registered. And, the plan for that is to grow that. So, next year it's our 5th year. I want to get to another 50% on top of that. Can we get to 7,500? That's what we're aiming for. I think there's no reason why we can't do it in an amazing city like London. And now we've got people even flying in. So from my perspective, let's get it there.
It's quite interesting when you talk about these corporations that were basically saying they ain't really got an issue, but the data isn't there. So you can't really challenge them because the data literally doesn't exist. But then you've been able to put together these events and these panels and get all of these different Black people in these areas of tech to be able to come and share on their experience. It reminded me a little bit about 1,000 Voices in the sense that we've got, as of recording this, 65 episodes are out. And then when I've started it and some of the people I've come across, I'm like, wow, this person is so cool, such a background, great. But then they've got a profile. We don't necessarily know about them. Or maybe they haven't been platformed in the way they needed to be platformed and their voice is amplified in the way that we probably should be amplifying these kind of people's voices. And something else which I like that you mentioned was that on these panels, when people come and discuss, they all come and talk about them being Black. And that's a bit of a qualm that I have, that a lot of times when either a Black person's in a senior position, not every single time, but a lot of times, if you look at these big corporations, oftentimes the most senior Black person in the corporation is going to be like a global head of D&I or something like that, but it's tied, something very directly tied to their race, as opposed to another C-suite position, oftentimes. And oftentimes when we have these panels and discussions and stuff, that Black people are called to come and talk on things like D&I and their race and their experience as a Black person, which of course is a topic in of itself, but we discuss that topic a lot, and there's other things that it's not our only thing that we could talk about. Talk about other areas of experience.
I've been working in tech for 10 years, I've got thoughts on lots of different things that are going on. And exactly right. It's not to say that there isn't space for those conversations. We have a couple of them, but I keep it minimal because there's so much more that we can talk about, and that is important to talk about, but that's one of the conversation. It's not the conversation. And we want to make sure that we're showing that there's a variety and a breadth of expertise and knowledge that we have as a community and value that we can add, whether you're building a startup or you're, working for a big tech company or you're, looking to get your first job. There's so much value in the community that we can share, and actually share to allies as well, share to people who want to come along, learn, experience things, having been in this place, which is majority Black working professionals. It really disappoints me sometimes when people talk to me about the event, because it's like, they've been working for 20, 30 years and it's the first time that they've been in an environment like this. And I'm like, that's so disappointing. Why? The reason we set that up was because, as I said, there wasn't any data and no one was doing anything. So we're like, well, it doesn't exist. We might as well be the people to do it. But I want that to be more. I want that to be more. And now there are a few more spaces where these things become more frequent. And I'm here for that because, we're here to serve the community. And I generally believe that, if somebody's over there doing something really good, that's good for us because it normalizes people's expectations of what we can do. And therefore people will give us more opportunities because they expect that we can deliver on them.
1,000,000%. How did the guy from South London go from South London to Forbes 30 under 30 and Black Tech Fest? How many say 5,000 people through the door and another 12,000 signed up? At a relatively young age. Was all of this stuff ready? Was this stuff on the agenda when you were young? Did you look forward to think, I'm gonna drive some kind of change, I'm gonna be successful in my craft? Was this journey on the cards, or did it just stumble upon it by accident?
It's a mixture of kind of two things. So South London was never a barrier for me, if that makes sense. I never look at South London as the reason I couldn't achieve something or couldn't do anything. In a way, it's one of the reasons I am able to do what I do, because I grew up in a really diverse part of town. I grew up in Lucian Borough, really mixture of affluence, ethnicities, genders, everything effectively. So I just thought that was the norm. When you're growing up, you don't comprehend the rest of the world. You see what you see. So for me, being in a really diverse environment, seeing smart kids at school who are Black or not, that was my norm. So that was the case. And I mean, to cut a few stories short, long story short, I remember when I got into technology in two things, basically. But for context, you can be in tech and never write a line of code. I've still not written functional line of code in production software. Dabbled around and maybe pressed send on, maybe pushed out a few things that shouldn't have been out, but that's not what anyone's paying me to do. But the reality is, I remember two things. I wasn't affluent at all when I was growing up. I wasn't. My family wasn't. I was the first in my immediate family to go to university, etc. But we had dial-up. I was still old enough to remember when you had to like take the phone cord out. And for kids, young people listening today, we don't have broadband in the same way we have today, where it's ubiquitous. You've got 4G. We don't have phones, and basically, if you want to use the internet, you had to go onto something and actually use it.
They don't know.
Yeah, but that was the case, and in a way, like I appreciate where we are now because of that. But I remember when I discovered two things. Wikipedia was the first. I was like, wow, I can do my homework so much more quickly now. What used to take an hour of researching my RE homework now took 10 minutes because Wikipedia had it all on one page. Copy and paste, kept getting A's. That was it. Like, do you know what I mean? I knew Wikipedia before my teachers knew it. And then the second thing was Google Earth. I remember hearing that Google were like going to take a picture of every road on the planet. I was like, what am I doing that for? One amazing business decision. I was playing around Google Earth. I couldn't travel. Like we couldn't afford to. So the reality was, like, if I wanted to see what a beach in the Philippines looked like, I had to go on this thing and now I could see it. I didn't have to look at the travel brochure anymore. And like, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to do it. Long story short, I was good at school. I was competitive in the sense that, like, I was like, look, if I'm going to be in this school thing, I might not necessarily enjoy it, but I might as well do it well. I might as well be the best. Like, if I'm going to spend the same hours in the class, why am I not getting an A or an A star or whatever? And that was the case for like all of my subjects. So yeah, I'd work hard, I'd revise hard, work smart as well. But I wasn't going to waste my time at school. It's like, if I'm there, like, yeah, I can have a joke or a laugh, but at the end of the day, like, might as well do it well. Like, what am I sitting there to come out with bad grades for? So I was always working as hard as I could, but I was good at geography. I was good at science, decent at maths, decent at English, but I wasn't the best in my class at almost anything, even geography. That's debatable. But long story short, unexpected wasn't anything I particularly envisaged, but I managed to get all A's and A stars in my GCSEs. And that happened. I was like, oh, maybe there is something in there. Again, you don't realize this. No one's pushing me. No one's telling me, oh, you should succeed. Like, I didn't go to Eton and people were like, oh, there you go. Anyway, went to do my subjects at my A level. I did geography, economics, biology, and PE because I still love sport. I love it. Maybe that's the thing about black men. They're always pushed into sport, but that's what I did. And anyway, I got 4 A's at AS level, and it's like, oh yeah, shoot, I got 100% in my geography and my biology guide, and 97 in economics. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should look at universities. So again, for me, I was like, well, I might as well go for the best university. I got the grades. Why would I not try and shoot for that? So I applied to Oxford. Long story short, got in. There's a bit of serendipity in there, but going from Lewisham to Oxford was a crazy experience.
I can imagine. Like,
going from one of the most diverse places in the world to one of the least diverse in 60 miles. It was just like crazy. And I had a really good time in many ways. I experienced some things that were particularly unpleasant as well. But I had so much opportunity as a result of going there. People come there and try and recruit you. Like, a lot of my friends didn't have any of that experience. And long story short, I got connected to some people who knew that Google were hiring in the UK. I just thought Google was just a Silicon Valley thing. I thought this was a search box. Remember, I was like, I don't know what that is. I want to do. I don't know what it was. But anyway, they are like, okay, you should apply. And in the Google application, they're like, oh, tell us about your favorite Google product and why. What did I talk about? Google Earth, Google Maps. What did I write my dissertation on? Google Earth, Google Maps. I did my interview. I knew more about Google Earth, Google Maps than the people interviewing me, and they gave me a job. And then I got into tech, and I had an amazing time at Google, but the tech industry still felt like Oxford. Like, I was like, what's up with that? Like, yeah, there's lots of great smart people here, but what about the people in Lewisham that are using Google? What about this stuff? And they weren't getting the same access to opportunity. People that I went to school with who got better grades than me in the maths or the English or whatever, asking me to help them get a job. And I was like, I'm an intern. What? But why are you coming to me? Like, why is there not someone who's better placed to help you? And that was kind of the seed at the back of the mind. So I want to be able to help people. Like, I always wanted to. I've always done a bit of philanthropic stuff anyway, because, like, you know, I feel that the world's bigger than me. Can I give a bit back? Can I help someone from my position? But I always wanted to do that. Anyway, the Colorintech story then kind of emerges a bit after that. I meet my co-founder, a guy called Dion. He's an investor at the time, was looking at like some businesses. We end up talking as two just black guys in tech. So like, you know, it's like you're on holiday, you see another black person, you're like, oh, who's that? Like, you know, it's the same kind of thing in our industry. And then we got reached out to by a university called De Montfort in Leicester. That were like, can you help get our students into tech? We're like, oh, you know, we know a few people, let's try, why not? At the time I was working for a startup, I'd left Google then. But we basically used the university travel grant and took the students to Silicon Valley. All expenses paid. We were still in economy. There's no like fasting media or sharing a room. Like it was, you know, but we took them out there to try and literally take them to the Googles. Like this is the first time I went, let alone the students went. Do you know what I mean? We had that opportunity, and I used some of my connections and people that I knew in that area to show them around. Sadly, the students didn't get roles. And it really, it's a skills thing. It's really hard to convert an opportunity of talking to a recruiter in Silicon Valley to a job interview in London. Like, that's not easy. You can do it, but it's a skill set, and it's a skill set we hadn't trained those students to have, and no one really knew. Like, I could probably do it now. Could I've done that at their age at 18? I went to Oxford, I probably wasn't even thinking like that. Like, so that was a challenge. So De Montfort came to us and were basically like, can you help support the students, etc. And we're like, yeah, we want to, but, you know, we've got time, money. Like, please. And we were talking through a few other universities around this kind of same issue, did similar things. Queen Mary's another university we did it with. Like, please, can you support the students a bit more? And we're like, look, like, we're working, we ain't got time. Like, we're trying to help, but that's like, it's not my job to look at 100 CVs. So then it was like, well, what if we gave you a bit of money to do it? And I was like, it's not about the money. I just don't have the time. It's like, please. We're like, okay, look, we'll take the money, we'll put it into a bank account, because we obviously had to put it into a bank account. It wasn't for me or Dion, it wasn't a personal thing. So we're like, okay, well, we need a business account to put it in. We're not doing it to make money, so we'll create a not-for-profit, put it in a not-for-profit business account, and then we'll use that money to pay someone to do it, so we don't do it. So we did a train-the-trainer model, basically. And then that started to work. We hired our first person, they got a role. They started to help the students get roles, and it started to be successful. And then that's kind of the genesis from how it started. So to answer your question, it wasn't a grand plan, but there were moments in my life which led me to this point, if that makes sense. And in a way, it's the best way to start a business. You start a business with someone literally begging you to giving you money to do it. Like what a good opportunity. At that point, you know, I was still working another job, did that for a few years, scaled it. And then, I mean, we can come onto this a bit more in depth, but yeah, then I decided to move on and kind of do it full time.
Yeah, it's very organic. It sounds like then.
Yeah, it wasn't, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. The lessons that I learned about how to do it, I'm still learning now. But I learned a lot in the startup that I worked for. That was, in a way, the best job I ever had and the most challenging job. But I learned more in those 2.5 years than I've learned, apart from doing my own business, probably. Like, you know, I could have worked for some of the companies I've worked for 10 years and not learned half of what I learned in that time. And yeah, it was organic. It wasn't a grand plan. But I think I'm a big believer in that you engineer serendipity. I don't like the word luck sometimes because it sounds too random. And I think there are lots of things that we can do as people to have agency in our lives to make things happen. So whether it's like, oh, it was lucky that I met that person. Yeah, but you put yourself in the room or that place to meet that person. And that was agency. So it's like, oh yeah, I bumped into this person who knew this opportunity. And there's times in my life where that's happened. But I had to make myself go to that event. I had to be in the room to do those things. So yeah, it might be fortune, but I don't necessarily just think it's pure like randomness. I don't subscribe a lot of like success down to just luck. I think there's fortune and people can engineer more of that for themselves. Like, you know, if I just sat at home for the next 5 years and didn't leave, not meet anybody, my business is going to be less successful. But if I'm out there doing things, it's going to be more successful. That's not luck. I'm making that happen.
Yeah. You're putting yourself in the right place, basically, making sure you're literally in the mix to be able to,
exactly.
People and do what you got to do.
So yeah, I might bump into someone who, you know, there's a lucky incident there, but I've manufactured myself being more likely to do those things, and that isn't luck. Yeah.
With most of our audience, they're going to be people who are interested either in entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, driving some sort of change in some ways, doing something quite entrepreneurial, basically, in their life or in their community. And there's a few things I wrote down, like a few key topics or themes that I thought would be quite interesting to explore, primarily around Colorintech and scaling the business and that kind of thing. And to start things off actually on that front, yeah. So Colorintech, you guys started in 2016.
Yeah.
You co-founded it with Dion.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, so you guys sort of met, and then it's not like you were friends for years before.
No,
you met and then started the business, basically.
We met, kind of spent a year talking about diversity in tech and just like some of the problems with ping articles back and forth or whatever. But it was kind of a year. It was a bit, I don't say like dating, but like
co-founder dating.
Yeah, you
call it.
Yeah, chatting basically.
Yeah. So I asked it because a lot in this business world, especially when it comes to the world of VC and stuff, a lot of venture capitalists say that they like to invest into companies where there's at least two people. They don't like investing into solo people. And there were two you guys who started this thing up, the social enterprise. And it's interesting to understand. Well, first of all, how it's not like you knew each other from childhood, because I hear different angles from people or you should know them from there, or you should start business first, like a test business, then do it, blah, 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 whatever. Everyone has a different viewpoint. But I'm also interested to understand what the dynamic is like between you two as co-founders. Like, do you wear different hats? And then how do you deal with disagreements? I'm sure there has been some differences of opinion along the way. Like, what's the dynamic like? How do you deal with that when you guys have differences of opinion?
Yeah, like, I think we are both fortunate that we work quite well together. I think, like we have different strengths and some similarities actually in terms of strengths. I think we both are quite strategic in terms we're always thinking about the horizon, not just all today. My expertise is quite good operationally. Like, I used to run programs, and that's kind of my background in terms of what I've always done. I used to work in customer success effectively. So I do more of that for the business. When we started, Dion was, I suppose, a bit more experienced in doing like the sales element of it and kind of building corporate strategic relationships. So he did more of that stuff, and I've kind of got better at that over time. And yeah, a lot of conversation. Like, I think like I'd say I lost a relationship because of like this situation. Like, the sacrifices that we would make. For example, I was on holiday with my friend's birthday last week. And I was up at X amount of time, like on a phone call to Dion, because we have our calls every Sunday. Why? Because it's the only time which we can guarantee we'll both relatively be free. Like, you know, in the business world, Saturday night, Friday night, it's not a great time, is it? Like, we're doing stuff Monday to Friday because we're working. So, and now we work full time on it, but you know what I mean? Like, we have our strategy sessions on a Sunday, and like, we used to have them at 6, 7 o'clock on a Sunday, and they'd go maybe from 7 till 10 p.m. every week. Like, that's additional time that we'll commit into the business, and it made sense. But it meant that my other half was like, what are you doing at that time? Like, why are you not spending it with me? And like, that's, do you know what I mean? That was detrimental to the quality time that I could have been spending in that situation. So that was, I think, being intentional and spending a lot of time and talking. Like, we don't always agree on things, but I think we can try and we're good at removing our ego from situations. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about what do we think. And, you know, like, sometimes we will disagree. And I think it's about going through the logic. Like, what's the logic behind this argument? Can we get there? We'll fully test each other's logic. And then, but I think we're humble enough or good enough to understand that, yeah, sometimes you're not going to be right. Sometimes you're not going to be right. Sometimes that's not the battle we're fighting. Sometimes it's the thing, but we try and work really collaboratively. We're quite consensus driven. Like, it's very rare one of us will go off and make a decision without kind of talking or consulting to the other one on something certainly big or strategic. And then, you know, as you build consensus, it might take longer, but you build less friction. And like, that's been really important for us, especially because we work quite asynchronously. During the pandemic, I think there are 2 years where we didn't really actually physically see each other. It's probably the same for a lot of businesses when you're working remotely, but we were kind of remote first from the beginning, so it didn't feel like a big change. It was just like the normal. But that's why we had to spend so much time on the phone. So yeah, I talked to Dion probably more than I talked to anybody else in my life. And like, that might be a problem at some points to some people, and it was at that point for me. Probably for him as well. But you know, we're building a business, and that's where we get to. And now we don't need to do that as much. We still spend a lot of quality time, obviously, but fortunately now we've got a team, so it's not all just down to us. You know, when we started out, everything was us.
What have you learned about leading a team?
You know, like the hip hop song, "More Money, More Problems." Yeah. It's more people, more problems. Yeah, because if you have more money, you hire more people, you have less money as well. So it's not even more money, more people. Yeah, look, that's a nut that's really hard to crack, and that's actually a really important one. Like, I think most businesses, ultimately, it's about the people. And when you work in really high performing teams, and I've been fortunate at different points in my career that I have, you can kind of take it for granted. And it's not until you work in situations where you're not performing all at that level where you really realize it. And like that can be really challenging in a business, and it's hard. Like you don't want to always like let people go, or you want to invest time people managing, but you've also got to do payroll or listen to clients or go to that meeting or do something else. So you can't always dedicate the time to things. And I think it's a constant battle. I try and be as available as I can. I try and make myself a manager, which I wanted to have, or that I've had, that I respected and model myself and previous managers that I've had, the pros and the cons. But, I'm sure, I'm not perfect in that instance as well. I know I'm not. So, yeah, it's a challenge. It's not one that I always think we've got right. But yeah, we have to learn like everybody else. And I am fortunate that, we've got some really great people in the business right now that are able to, drive what we want to do forwards. And my role is actually to kind of get out of the way and kind of facilitate them. That's how I see it. I don't want to be the no person. I just want to challenge their thinking, so it's at that level that we need to move forwards, and then create the opportunities, whether it be the money or the partnerships or whatever it is, so that they can go and execute on what they want to do. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Did you see that Extend Ventures report? I think it came out in 2019, so it might be slightly outdated. But
there's a new one coming in December, FYI.
Oh, great. So, but we'll look at on the 2019 one. The two biggest issues that Black British entrepreneurs were having were, one, marketing, or in other words, scale, trying to grow their business, and two, funding. Yeah. And there are two things that you and the team have managed to do successfully thus far with Colorintech. If we touch upon the scale side of things first, so you said that you and Dion used to have these strategizing calls every single Sunday for hours on end, and
we still do.
You're still having these strategic calls every single week. And that, was there like a particular strategy or something that you think you and the team done right that helped you to achieve the level of scale you have over this period of time?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think one is kind of almost a constant focus on like the customer, if that makes sense. So like from our perspective, even when we started, the universities were like basically like giving us a little bit of cash. We always knew we wanted to flip the business model. Always like, for us to reach a certain scale, for us to have the money to do what we want to do, corporates need to pay for it. So we spent probably 6 to 9 months really pivoting or working out how to find a model which would work, and then kind of seeing about that product market fit. Again, like working for probably another year on top of that to make sure we were delivering stuff. I come from a consulting background, so it's like a problem solving almost, like how do we do that? But I think part of it is that I always say, we never took money from government, or, we had grants, but our business was never founded or run on the grant, because we needed to say, even when it dried up, and it did dry up, COVID times, there's lots of money for everybody, literally you could even pretend you had PPE and they'd give it to you. Do you know what I mean? And now, so when the grant funding goes, can you still run a business? Do you still have enough cash flow and money? And for that, you have to be building something that is providing value and is for your customers, and there's a business case for it. No one wakes up in the morning, I say no one, 99.9% of people in businesses don't wake up in the morning and be like, how am I going to give money to black people? And we're fortunate there are still a few, and they are there, and so someone's got to always think about, what's the business case? Are we seeing the value from this partnership or this investment? Because, my budget can be spent somewhere else, so someone's going to lose it. Or when there were cuts, should we cut this thing? And from our perspective, it was always about making sure that we're building something that we could say, that we could answer that question to. Our clients will fund this from their businesses, from the money that they're generating, because it's generating money back to them. So it was really closely aligned to that. And we didn't do things where we didn't feel like we were adding value. We didn't do things which we thought were a bit tenuous or nice to have. We always really focused on it's got to come from the business. So I think that's one of them. And then, shall I touch on the funding one?
Yeah, let's go into the funding.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of complicated because we've never taken venture capital funding. One is partly because of structure, but not necessarily because we couldn't. Maybe in an alternative world, or maybe in the future, maybe we'll spin part of our business out, and we do. I've been around founders that have raised enough, or VCs that invest enough, that I think we could achieve something there. But you've got to have the proposition, and I think in the absence of being able to do that, I think we've probably built a stronger business as a result. because, as I said, we had to go back to that thing. We had to effectively bootstrap. So we always had to make money. Like, if we weren't making it, where was it coming from? It wasn't coming from, some sort of debt or equity or like some fake capital effectively. So all of our customers pay everything that we do. It's meant that we've grown more slowly, but it's meant that we've always had to have a business good solution, something that was ready to operate for our big clients or for our small clients or whatever it was in a service business effectively, because we wouldn't have the money otherwise. So in a way, we've always got good renewable revenue, and it's not a given. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we still have to work hard for it. It's not gonna. If I stop working for 6 months, it's not gonna come magically. Like, we have to keep doing that. But the idea is that we've always had something which is fine for the businesses, which has meant that we've never been reliant on those sources of funding because we've bootstrapping. And like, even if you're got X amount of money on VC, what do your VCs want to see? Like, your customers are paying you and that you've got a product that they want to pay for. Like, their money's to help you get there. But we're there in that sense. So, that's what we want to do. That's what we continue to do. And I'm really fortunate that, in the years that we've worked, we've got deals from, some of the world's biggest companies, literally Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon. We sold to the big tech companies in the world. And, they give money away, but as I said, we're not chasing that money. We're chasing the business money, with the money that they don't give away, the money that we have to earn and work hard for. And that's what we want to build our business around, because it's going to mean that we've got a better product, service, solution, and the market will keep us honest. If people don't want to fund us, we've got to ask the question about, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right thing? And that will mean that we build a more stronger, robust business moving forwards.
When you talk about the funding side of things, actually, because I read it was from Google, $250,000 or pounds, 250K in whatever currency is a significant amount, anyways. And it was the largest grant that they'd ever given at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Is there? And then you've had to. It seems like you guys have been hyper focused, and you've had to, maybe pivot a bit here and there at the start just to make sure you've got a good product that will work with these corporates you wanted to work with. Is there a particular way in which you approach these corporates, like how? You just emailed help at Google?
No. Again, that doesn't happen. It's serendipity. Like, long story short, when we were doing one of those trips over to California, one of the organizations that we partnered with, and when I say partnered, we reached out to them cold and we're like, you're doing some interesting things. We got connected to them and we're like, we want to take our students to see what you're doing. There's good practice there. There's good work. One of those were funded by Google Org. So the guy at Google Org came along and saw, what we were doing. And then actually the California company called Hidden Genius Project, for anyone who doesn't know, fundamental in the story. They came over to the UK to see, we got inspired by them. We were like, let's do something similar. They came along to support and do that. They said to their Google people, why don't you have a look at what we're doing? Anyway, they liked it. Google reached out to us actually. And we're like, effectively, like, what would you do if we gave you a grant? One of the best emails I've ever had, like literally imagine that popping in your inbox. Like, woof, like, what do you do? So obviously, again, they're not just giving it away. So we had to come up with a proposal about what we do. We have to show that we're able to execute it. But again, it took someone to take a punt because it wasn't the first time that they'd done this outside of North America. And, people give like companies like Google a lot of stick, but Google in particular, they were always doing stuff. They were doing stuff earlier than other people were doing it. Like, they get a lot of slack, but they're out there doing it, batting for it before other people thought that they should be doing it. And I always give them credit for that. And they have continued to do that throughout, good, bad, etc., etc. No one's perfect. No one gets everything right, but they do a lot more than a lot of other people who aren't getting stuff right as well. We basically had to come up with that proposal. And it took someone, as I said, to wake up that morning and be like, we're going to do that for that organization. Someone had to take that opportunity. And it turns out that somebody was somebody that we met, or that I personally met 5 years ago when I was like in university.
Oh, wow.
And talk about serendipity. That was when I was doing some voluntary work. I was helping judge an award category for a humanitarian project, and Google Org were one of the I suppose other judges on that panel. So the guy, and I won't mention his name specifically, but they saw that I was committed to doing some of this work before there was any money on the table, before I was, fully formed human, if you get what I mean. I was committed to trying to help people, trying to do things, trying to think about how we could further success in the community. So when it was a question about, are these people credible? Are these people passionate? Are these people the right people to back? Well, he'd been able to see that for 5 years. I wasn't pitching that, but it goes back to that serendipity. I was on my LinkedIn and I was active on that so people could see the journey, even if they weren't talking to them. I was in that room all that time ago. If I didn't go to that thing, it might have never have happened. I was going to be very different. So how do you engineer that? It might have been luck, it might have been fortune, it might have been what? But I also put my hand up and said I wanted to do that thing. I was like, I wanted to do that thing in particular and I wanted to make it happen. So that was part of that. So, and then how do we go about doing it now? Well, I think maybe the better lessons are about like, what do we do in the early days? And again, it's about putting yourself in the situation. We had to do good work. That was the first thing. We had to do good work and one, show the people at the Google that they were good to back what we were doing initially and that was a good use of their money and time and energy. And then we invited people that we wanted to show that good work to. So they would see that we're doing good work and they would see that we're working with some companies and they would see that there's more that they could potentially do if they helped us.
You mean like potential sponsors, you mean?
Yeah, potential sponsors, potential partners. And where we didn't know them, well, we'd try and find ways to go to them. You know, people have events, whether it's like Black History Month and there's a showcase or an office event, you know, when we still do that, you know, effectively it's BD or go to conferences and meeting people, but it's a B2B land. You've got to go and build those relationships. So from our perspective, it's about going to where our potential customers or prospects are, and always having something good to talk to them about and show them. So we have to do good work, whether we're making money from it or not. And we always have to, you know, be intentional about putting ourselves in the right situations because, you know, I'll go to Web Summit, as I mentioned, next week. Don't know who I'm going to meet, but what can I talk about? The good work that we're doing, and now, thankfully, who we're working with. And that hopefully will mean that we have good conversations when we're out there. So yeah, I think, especially from a B2B business perspective, it's really important for a founder or a BD or whatever you are to be out there. You are selling your product. And we don't have no marketing budget. We don't have like Google ad spend. You know, we didn't have these things. We didn't have VC money to go and hire 5 marketers for our team. You know, the social media was us. Like, we had to be out there doing it. And before we had like a brand channel, let's just use our own personal channels in order to market our work effectively. And, you know, we had a network because personally we were developing it. And one thing I'd always say to whoever's at the start of their career, but all the way throughout their career, always keep growing and working on that. You never know who's going to see what you're up to or come or change jobs and then you become relevant or whatever it is. Connect with people, even if it is just on LinkedIn or whatever, but don't spam people, don't like forcefully connect, but, you know, being intentional to show off what you do and build those networks and those relationships. And then, yeah, hopefully good things come out of that.
Let's take it back a little bit, yeah. So we're talking about this money, the raising money things, and I think that's an important topic just because it's like one of the things that Black founders tend to struggle on the most. And you had the opportunity somewhat came to you, or came to you and the team, I should say, but obviously you had to put together a proposal and make it happen at the same time. Did you ask for 250K or did you just do a 250K proposal? And they said, oh, this is what it's going to require. Here's your grant.
Yeah, there's 2 things. The initial kind of email was like, give us a proposal for some of the things that you'd like to do. So kind of almost a blank check email, if you get what I mean. Give me your ideas, give you the sorts of things that you'd like to do. And then, you know, obviously for us, we have to like cost that up and work out what's feasible and what's practical. And I'd always say this to anyone who's doing BD, you know, shoot for stars, you might hit the moon, you know, like you need to build something big and visionary. You have to get people to buy into the vision, really. You don't want to fall into the trap of being a commodity play. You know, if people are just comparing you line by line cost item to the other tool, like that's dangerous. That's chaff in business because, you know, there could be something better than you. There could be something more optimal. There could be something cheaper. Like, you don't want to get into that. I'm in a shopping aisle. Do I like that apple or this apple? That's not how you want people to think about your business. You want people to buy into you as a founder. And when you don't necessarily have your product to show, as I say, you've got to be that salesperson. But then you also want people to buy into where you're going. You know, whether it's politics or business, you know, people want to believe in something. People want to feel that their lives or their product or their jobs are going to be better in X period of time because of the work that you're doing together. And that's what we needed to sell. So for us, it was like, yeah, we asked for more, because we're ambitious. We have visions. I mean, you know, someone could say I have 25 million. I'd give them a proposal for 100. Like, do you know what I mean? The plan is we always want to do more. Do you know what I mean? So in a way, you give that, and then it's kind of for other people to tell you no. I'm very conscious that, in the world of B2B business, especially with some of the big tech companies out there, they're a lot richer than I am. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously everyone's got a budget, but go on could go on their websites, you can see how much money they have. So why am I going to scrimp? Like, do you know what I mean? I'm going to staff things properly. I'm going to make sure that we can deliver, because it goes back to the quality work. I'm not going to promise to do stuff which we can't deliver, or it's going to drain the team or kill the battery. That's not to say we won't work hard, but the work hard, that delta comes in over delivery, not in to deliver. You have to be able to resource things properly, because otherwise you're going to develop worse products, solutions, services, and people will notice that. If you can't live up to their expectations, that's how to lose business. Any additional work you should be doing is over delivery. And if you find yourself constantly chasing your tail just to deliver on your obligations, that's not a great place to be in for too long. So for us, it's like, if someone's saying that we've got this money, even if someone tells us that we've only got 20k, like, we still give them an option for 25 or 30k, because you've got to give them the side, give them the vision. You've got to give them a reason to go back and say, I want that extra 5 or that 10% or whatever it is. Or like, you want them to say, okay, we can't do it this year, but I really like that idea, so next year I want to make that happen. You've got to constantly shoot for that. And you've also, got to make sure that if it does happen, and in times it has happened, that you've asked for enough that you can deliver on things. You don't want to promise the world and then you've only asked for the moon, and then you've got to build that rocket from Mars to Jupiter. You've got to get there. So I always say shoot for a bit more, because the worst that they come back is something smaller, and then, okay, well, you can reduce the scope then.
Yeah. On this networking piece, you touched upon it before. That's something that I've heard a lot of people say is important. And then I've worked on developing my own network. But an issue that I have, and I don't know if anybody else that's listening has it, is that you can go to the events, you can shoot messages out on LinkedIn or whatnot, connect with people initially, but then it's like maintaining that relationship afterwards. It's like you don't want it to be inorganic. You don't want to check in, I don't know, randomly at high, and then, how do you actively, if you're not in the same space, you're not seeing them in your place of work, you might not be seeing them at the same events, for example. Like, I don't know if you have that kind of issue. How do you approach?
For sure. I mean, I don't think we don't need to over egg it. Like, people are people, and people understand. Like, I don't want to be reached out to if it's irrelevant. Reach out in a timely manner, i.e., you've got something new to tell me, or you're excited about something, or there's something going on that I can add value to. It's a really good question to ask for people's advice rather than for them to do things. I'm really interested in your advice about how I would approach the big 4 companies in consulting, because you work for big 4. Okay, that's a different conversation to, can you connect me to Jane Vlogs, who works in this? Think about how you do that. But we don't need to over-engineer things. People get so many messages, so many stuff like that. Again, have a way that you can show what you're doing tacitly, because people see it and scroll. Like, again, talk about like LinkedIn as a platform. Are you active on it to the point that, you might not necessarily be keeping in touch with somebody every month, but, when they log in, you're the first thing that they see, and you're doing something good, and you've got good engagement. And like, people see that. And so when you reach out, it's not a surprise. People kind of know what you've been up to, because they can kind of see it. Like, so there is that. I think there's nothing wrong with just maintaining a relationship, just saying, maybe every 3 or 6 months I'm going to go for a coffee with that person. I'm just going to go and grab time with lunch, or let's do a breakfast if, you've got other commitments in the day or whatever it is. Doing those things and like just leaving a good impression. I don't mind if I've not spoken to someone in a year and they reach out to me, if it's with the right thing and we've had good interactions before. Like, if someone wants some of my time, it's like TBC, because if all you want to do is like pick my brains, i.e., like just have free consultancy, no.
Time is precious.
Yeah, time is precious. People pay me for that. Do you get what I'm saying? But like, I'm far more likely to give someone at the time if they're like, they want my advice on how to do something. That's why I kind of created Colorintech, because I can point them to something, but I'm far more likely to give that time if I thought there's a value there. And if I can't give that time there, if someone wants to take you for a breakfast or a lunch, like, I'm more likely to do that as well. Everyone likes food, everyone's got to eat at some point of the day. Like, maybe I'm happy to do it. I work at the gym though. I say work at the gym, I go gym, so lunches are usually a no for me. Breakfast I don't like mornings, so I'm still tetchy on it. But if you're offering those things, you want to have a coffee or have a catch up, maybe we can put some time in. It might not be next week, but in 3 months' time, maybe, let's put a flag in the sand now, and we can make it happen. So, you're not always going to be accessible. You're not always going to be able to do that for everybody. But if you're one of those people that I feel that in a transactional way will add value to what I'm doing, or is a good person to stay connected to because I see that you're doing good things, I'm far more likely to want to make that time. You know, and I think it goes back to that analogy which people are saying, would you rather have $500,000 of time, $500,000 or, you know, lunch with Jay-Z? So although people talk about $500,000, it's because you have no value to add. Like, they have no value. Like, I would always take the lunch because I could create more than $500,000 in an hour with Jay-Z for both of us. Like, that's why I'd want the lunch. You know, I ain't $500,000, like, you know, just from that, the opportunity's better. But you have to be able to add value. So what value are you adding to these people as well? And I kind of think, you know, if you're reaching out to people and networking and there's no value that you can add, that's a hard thing. You know, what value can you add?
If you could go back to 2016 when you founded it, Colorintech up until now, is there anything that you would do differently?
Really great question. It might sound a bit harsh, but I trust myself more, or my gut more, on people decisions. Whether that's like hiring or firing, frankly. Like, I think when you speak to really seasoned like business leaders over time, they're like, yeah, they make decisions far more decisively, and sometimes it can feel a bit harsh, or sometimes you can be a bit like, wow, that was a bit like, and I've been in organizations where it's happened, but having been on the other side of it now, you're like, yeah, well, you ain't got money to burn. Like, do you know what I mean? Or like, you know, we need to do this quickly, let's go for it. Like, I think there's been times where we've potentially like hesitated more than we should have done in hindsight. And it can sound a bit horrible if I think about it that way. But if I think about it the other way, then like, if I'm doing the right thing for the business, it shouldn't feel like that. And I'm not a horrible person. I don't like dislike people that I work with or anything like that. And I make mistakes too. Like, maybe I've hired the wrong people, or maybe I've not hired the right people. Or maybe I've done both at times. As I said, it's a mixture. Like, you know, it's a mixed bag sometimes. But when you make the wrong decision, being decisive about it is probably something we haven't done as quickly as we should have done. And that's, if I'm just being honest, one of the things that I'll probably go back and tell my younger self to do, or, you know, in the benefit of hindsight. But it's hard learning. I still don't know if I've got it right. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I know where we've got some things wrong, and like, yeah, like, I can recognize that.
Cool, great. And as we prepare to wrap up, alas, it's been a great conversation, but we got to wrap up. And final questions to wrap things up. What advice would you give to someone who's wanting to start up some kind of a purpose-driven business or initiative or something like that? They wanted to drive some sort of change, basically, either in their life, in their community, in the world. What advice would you give to someone like that?
No, I was almost say, don't look for the problem. Like, the world's got lots of problems. You don't need to be searching hard for the problem. Always wait for the problem to come to you, because you might then be pretty well placed to actually do something about it. Like, you know, there's loads of things that we could do in the world, but like, I'm not the best person to bring like world peace, or I'm not the best person to, you know, make a cure for cancer, or what, you know, I'm not that best person, as much as I'd love to be able to help people in those other ways. But maybe I am a good person to help you get a job. Like, you know, maybe that's what I can add the value. And I think a lot of people, when they want to do social good, they look for problems and try and attach themselves to them. And that's kind of easy to an extent, because there are lots of them. But kind of almost think a bit differently, like, where am I best placed to solve that problem? That's one thing I do. And then the second thing is network. Honestly, the most valuable thing that I've built is my professional network. Even if this business, whatever we're doing, doesn't work out, I will be fine because of the network that I've built. And that gives me so much more safety net to have a risk appetite that otherwise I wouldn't have. Like, I have a mortgage. I don't necessarily worry about being able to pay that, because great, we've built a business where I can pay myself, and that's fantastic. But even if that went all sour and I wasn't able to continue running the business, I know that I've got a good enough network that I can probably land myself in a good job and a good opportunity outside of that, or maybe set up the next thing that I could do, and someone would back me to do that. And that comes from like, I was able to build that safety net because I don't have financial wealth in my family. I don't have, like, you know, parents' house that I can kind of just go and live back in, or all these other things. I've had to build that. And I suppose the way that I've built that safety net for myself is by having a good network of people that I can message and will reply, frankly. And that's hopefully because they feel like there's value that I can add, or that I'm a intelligent person that's got good questions, that can come up with solutions, and that can help them on what things that they're working on. And, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. I don't know totally what the plan is. I've got a few ideas, but, you know, if you ask someone a crystal ball about where you're going to be in 2050, God knows, you know what I mean? Like, can't think about 25 minutes. But the point is that I know I should be okay because of some of this groundwork that I've put into building that network. And that's one thing that I'd say to a lot of people when they're looking about how to progress in their career. Are you well networked enough so even if it's not in your current company, you can move into something well enough? You don't just have to apply for a job like that. You can bring someone and talk to them about a job. It's a kind of different vibe, but like when you get to that level, you stop job hunting, jobs start to hunt you. And yeah, I always say I never apply for another job again. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not doing an application form like that.
They take forever.
Yeah, like I'm not doing that, but I shouldn't need to. Because I know good people, I know people in this that I work with a lot of hiring managers. Like I should be able to have a conversation. Someone would be like, "That's a good opportunity for you. Let me put you in touch." So if I am filling in an application, it's a process thing. It's not because that's the route to success. So build the network.
That's it. Great. Thank you for coming on once again. Great conversation. If people want to keep up to date with yourself, with Colorintech, the Black Tech Fest, how can they best do so?
So, I'm on LinkedIn. My name's Ashleigh Ainsley. You can find it ASHLEIGH though. A lot of people think it's LEY and I will correct you if you get it wrong. In terms of our social handles, Colorintech, on Instagram, TikTok, same with Black Tech Fest on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, same for Colorintech. Colorintech.org on X, or it's formerly known as Twitter because someone got there first. But maybe Elon will sort that out for us one day. But yeah, just find us, type in Colorintech on Black Tech Fest on any search engine and we'll come up at the top.
Perfect. And have you got any final words before we close up?
Thanks for listening. I hope this is valuable. Please reach out. Look, if Colorintech can help you, I literally set up to try and help people. So even if we can't, like, let me know why we can't, because I'm super keen to think that we can hopefully build something that's available for people. So yeah, thank you, and thank you as well for reaching out and making this happen. I really do appreciate the platform.
Oh, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. Amazing conversation, loads of gems, took away a lot of stuff. So thank you once again for coming to the podcast. But that's that for now. This is 1000 Voices. We had Ashleigh on the podcast, and for now, people, we're out.